When most candidates barely recognize the existence of Palestine or its people, as a Palestinian-American Republican, I'm here to tell you we do exist.
Let's ask Governor Romney. First of all, what would you say to Abraham?
Well, the reason that there's not peace between the Palestinians and Israel is because there is in the leadership of the Palestinian people are Hamas and others who think like Hamas, who have as their intent the elimination of Israel. And whether it's in school books that teach how to kill Jews, or whether it's in the political discourse that is spoken either from Fatah or from Hamas, there is a belief that the Jewish people do not have a right to have a Jewish state. There are some people who say, should we have a two-state solution? And the Israelis would be happy to have a two-state solution. It's the Palestinians who don't want a two-state solution. They want to eliminate the state of Israel. And I believe America must say, and the best way to have peace in the Middle East is not for us to vacillate and to appease, but is to say we stand with our friend Israel. We are committed to a Jewish state in Israel. We will not have an inch of difference between ourselves and our ally Israel. This president went before the United Nations and castigated Israel for building settlements. He said nothing about thousands of rockets being rained in on Israel from the Gaza Strip. This president threw... I think he threw Israel under the bus with regards to defining the 67 borders as a starting point of negotiations. I think he disrespected Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Bibi Netanyahu. I think he has time and time again shown distance from Israel, and that has created, in my view, a greater sense of aggression on the part of the Palestinians. I will stand with our friend Israel.
Thank you, Governor. Speaker Gingrich, you got into a little hot water when you said the Palestinians were an invented people.
It was technically an invention in the late 1970s, and it was clearly so. Prior to that, they were Arabs. Many of them were either Syrian, Lebanese, or Egyptian, or Jordanian. There are a couple simple things here. There were 11 rockets fired into Israel in November. Now imagine in Duval County that 11 rockets hit from your neighbor. How many of you would be for a peace process? And how many of you would say, you know, that looks like an act of war? You have leadership unequivocally, and Governor Romney is exactly right. The leadership of Hamas says not a single Jew will remain. Well, you're not having a peace negotiation then. This is war by another form. My goal for the Palestinian people would be to live in peace, to live in prosperity, to have the dignity of a state, to have freedom, and they can achieve it any morning they are prepared to say Israel has a right to exist, we give up the right to return, and we recognize that we're going to live side by side. Now let's work together to create mutual prosperity, and you could in 5 years dramatically improve the quality of life of every Palestinian, but the political leadership would never tolerate that, and that's why we are in a continuous state of war where Obama undermines the Israelis. On the first day that I'm president, if I do become president, I will sign an executive order directing the State Department to move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem to send the signal with Israel.
Let's go to Miami. Let's take another question from Miami. Juan Carlos, go ahead.
Thank you, Wolf. I am joined now by Elizabeth Cuevas Neunder. She is the CEO and founder of the Puerto Rican Chamber of Commerce in Florida. She's based out of Tampa. And I'm pretty sure, Elizabeth, your question has to do with the beautiful island of Puerto Rico.
Seguro que sí. Good evening, buenas noches. I am bilingual, proud of it. My question is to the candidates. We have 4 million Puerto Ricans in United States voters, 3.8 in Puerto Rico. We have been treated as second-class citizens, and just now our governor's name was not mentioned as a VP possibility, a great governor. My question to you is, where do you stand for Puerto Rico to become a state? And secondly, where do you stand on domestic trade between Florida and Puerto Rico, between Tampa Bay and Ponce ports, which had been neglected?
All right, Senator Santorum, let's throw that question to you. Right, the question about, do you support Puerto Rico potentially as the 51st state?
Well, first, I'll give a shout-out to Governor Luis Fortuño, who's a good friend of mine, and someone, I know him and his family. We've known each other for many years. We actually used to go to church together, and so I spoke to Luis this week. And I've been to Puerto Rico many times, and actually, when I was a United States Senator, we did a lot of work with Puerto Rico. Because of my relationship with many friends down there, I was made aware of problems, for example, in the Medicaid program. We went down and we actually passed things to help with reimbursement rates, which were deplorably low in Puerto Rico. We also worked on hurricane relief and a whole host of other things as a result of my relationship with many Puerto Ricans in Pennsylvania and developed those relationships on the island. I believe that I believe in self-determination. The Puerto Rican people should have the opportunity to be able to speak on this. I have supported that. I don't take a position one way or the other on statehood, Commonwealth, independence. That's for the people of Puerto Rico to decide. But I also supported a lot of things to help the Puerto Rican economy. Puerto Ricans are United States citizens, and the poverty, the unemployment rates simply are simply not something that we as Americans should allow to occur in our country. And we need to make sure that there are pro-growth, supply-side economics to make sure that Puerto Rico can be successful as an economy in that island, and I believe they can, and under my administration, that's something that I would work toward.
I'll take that as a maybe, right? Statehood, not statehood?
Oh, no, I take no position on that. That's, I've supported, the opportunity for them to make that decision.
Let's take another question from the audience here. Go ahead, please. What's your name?
Suzanne Bass. I'm an attorney in Jacksonville. Welcome to the great city of Jacksonville. My question, how would your religious beliefs, if you're elected, impact the decisions that you make in the office of the presidency?
Congressman Paul?
Well, my religious beliefs wouldn't affect it. My religious beliefs affects my character and the way I treat people and the way I live. The only thing that would affect... The only thing that would affect me in the way I operate as a president or a congressman is my oath of office and my promises that I've made to the people.
Governor?
Ron Paul makes very good points. I concur with that. I would also seek the guidance of Providence in making critical decisions. And of course, ours is a nation which is based upon Judeo-Christian values and ethics. Our law is based upon those values and ethics. And in some cases, our law doesn't encompass all of the issues that we face around the world. The conviction that the founders, when they wrote the Declaration of Independence, were writing a document that was not just temporary and not just for one small locale, but really something which described the relationship between God and man. That's something which I think a president would carry in his heart. So when they said, for instance, that the Creator had endowed us with certain unalienable rights, among them life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, I would seek to assure that those principles and values remain in America and that we help share them with other people in the world, not by conquering them, but by helping them through our trade, through our various forms of soft power, to help bring people the joy and opportunity that exists in this great land.
Mr. Speaker.
I would say that there are three ways in which religion would affect me. The first is, I agree with Governor Romney. I think anyone who's president is faced with decisions so enormous that they should go to God. They should seek guidance, because these are decisions beyond the ability of mere mortals to truly decide without some sense of what it is we should be doing. I would say, second, that we have a real obligation to recognize that if you're truly faithful, it's not just an hour on Sundays or Saturdays or Fridays. It's, in fact, something that should suffuse your life, should be a part of who you are. And in that sense, it is inextricably tied in with how you behave. But I would say, third, one of the reasons I'm running is there has been an increasingly aggressive war against religion, and in particular against Christianity in this country, largely by a secular elite in the academic, news, media, and judicial areas. And I frankly believe it's important to have some leadership that stands up and says enough. We are truly guaranteed the right of religious freedom, not religious oppression by the state.
Senator?
Faith is a very, very important part of my life, but it's a very, very important part of this country. the foundational documents of our country. Everybody talks about the Constitution, very, very important, but the Constitution is the how of America. It's the operator's manual. The why of America, who we are as a people, is in the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created and equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. The Constitution is there to do one thing: protect God-given rights. That's what makes America different than every other country in the world. No other country in the world has its rights based in God-given rights, not government-given rights. And so when you say, well, faith has nothing to do with it, faith has everything to do with it. If rights come... If our president believes that rights come to us from the state, everything government gives you, it can take away. The role of the government is to protect rights that cannot be taken away. And so the answer to that question is, I believe in faith and reason and approaching the problems of this country, but understand where those rights come from, who we are as Americans, and the foundational principles by which we have changed the world.
Thank you, Senator. We have one more break to take, but we have a lot more to discuss. Don't go too far away. Coming up, the final debate question before Florida votes. Few minutes of the last question to these four presidential candidates before the Florida primary on Tuesday in this debate format. Here's the question, and it involves the President of the United States. I want you to tell voters who are watching or are here on this campus right now why you are the one person on this stage that is most likely to beat Barack Obama. Congressman.
Well, you know, so far we have some pretty good evidence that I'll do quite well and have a better chance than the rest to beat him, because if you do a national poll, I do very, very well against Obama. But one of the reasons is that the freedom message in the Constitution is very appealing to everybody in all political beliefs, because it includes free markets, which conservatives endorse, but it also protects civil liberties, the way people run their lives. If it is a God-given life and it's your life, you should have the right to run your life as you so choose, as long as you don't hurt other people. This means a lot more tolerance than some would like to give. So that brings people in who are concerned about civil liberties, and all of a sudden, my position undermines Obama completely and totally, because the foreign policy is different. He promises to end the wars, but the wars expand. A constitutional foreign policy will end the wars, and if you want somebody to talk about peace and prosperity, it has to be somebody who understands money and a foreign policy and free markets.
Governor Romney, why are you the one person on this stage most likely to beat President Obama?
The people of America recognize that this is a critical time. This is not just an average election. This is a time when we're going to decide whether America will remain the great hope of the 21st century, whether this will be an American century, or instead whether we'll continue to go down a path to become more and more like Europe, a social welfare state. That's where we're headed. Our economy is becoming weaker. The foundation of our future economy is being eroded. Government has become too large. We're headed in a very dangerous direction. I believe to get America back on track, we're going to have dramatic, fundamental, extraordinary change in Washington to be able to allow our private sector to once again reemerge competitively, to scale back the size of government, and to maintain our strength abroad in our military capacities. I believe that to change Washington in such a dramatic way, you cannot do it by people who've been there their entire careers. I believe if you just elect the same people to change chairs in Washington, not much will happen. I think if you want to change Washington, you're going to have to bring someone in who's been on the outside. I have lived in the private sector. I know how it works. I've competed with businesses around the world. I know how to win. I know what it takes to keep America strong. I know how to work in government. I've had experience for 4 years, working as the governor of Massachusetts. I will use the experience of my life to get America right, and I will be able to convince the American people that someone with my experience is very different than Barack Obama, and that experience is how I'll beat him.
Mr. Speaker, why are you the one person on this stage most likely to beat President Obama?